Hello, this is National Chess Master All Rats at ICC. I'm analyzing a game between tightfist and G8 WRB. This was played in Team4545 League in Team Event 58, and it was selected as Game of the Week for Week 4, and it's quite a topsy-turvy affair, as we will see. Let's have a look. Okay, the game really starts out with without too much going on, and both sides are developing their pieces. And let's see. Come on, I've got lag. There it goes. Okay. Now, I don't think it's wise for White to grab this knight and just to double those pawns, because White's going to be a little weak on the light squares. So, but this move kind of puzzled me. What was why would Black play this move? So I'm just going to think about it for a second. The natural move is to just continue development. Let's look at this. What's he afraid of? Knight e5? Well, no. Knight e5. Let's look at it. Knight e5. White's not threatening to win a pawn. White or Black could play Queen e8 and get ready to kick the knight out. Okay, he's willing to accept double pawns already. Why not now? You know, like I say, Black's ready to kick the knight out, and you know, Black's not hurting here. This is okay. White's not really gained anything at all. There's just been some piece trades, and the game stays even. When pieces get traded off rather quickly in an opening, you can often get an even game. Especially here when there's no development going. You know, neither side is connected their rooks yet, and White hasn't castled, and it's not clear what good squares these or outposts these pieces have. A little static here. I'm trying to get rid of it. There we go. Okay, so let's just revert. So I don't particularly like Rook B8, but it's not a bad move. Okay, and A6, once again, kind of a puzzling move to me. Black doesn't need to fear White putting a knight on B5, okay, unless Black's planning to prepare B5 at some point. You know, the important thing is to complete development first. Bringing the queen to E7. You know, he's got this bishop sitting here that he might have to give up the bishop pair with. You know, but that, you know, you put it there, could have been developed to E7. So Queen E7 is fine. You know, A6 again, it's not a bad move, and Black decides to preserve the bishop for a moment, and White gains a little bit of space. Black hangs onto it, and it looks like White's making a little bit of progress here, but it's not exactly clear what he's really gaining, because he doesn't have any firm foothold as far as creating outposts for his pieces. I mean, there's all kinds of potential pawn thrusts, but really these pawns are better off in the row they're in right now, because they're controlling. You know, just draw the diagrams. They're controlling all these squares on the 5th rank. So, but again, you know, this queen needs to get developed so the rooks are connected, and then figure out some files to open up so the rooks can get activated. And there, White gets more command of the 5th rank with another pawn. So what Black should be doing now is challenging that pawn setter, and he does here with E5. Now let's take a look at the time. White's taking his time here, which is good. And Black has finally gone into a deep think. He spent, what, 4 minutes about on that move? Yeah, because the clock goes down 3 minutes and 17 seconds. I think this is a good move, in that at some point Black does need to challenge that pawn center. And I think this move is not the correct choice. I'll show a better move for White. White doesn't really have any advantage, but I think C5 is better. It gives White all kinds of interesting possibilities. It puts the question to this bishop, and if, like for instance, if the bishop retreats, then maybe then maybe d5. And if white or black takes, white can open up the d file, have another tempo on the bishop, and say the bishop drops back to here. White can just simply play queen e2, and he's getting ready to play knight d5. And white's got a little more board room, and that's about it. Now, black has some of these possibilities. The knight d4, we'll see them in the game, and we'll talk more about that. But I think that white could have got a little more with the c5 push, because he gets a tempo on the bishop. Here, you say, well, I'm getting a tempo on the knight, but the knight goes to a very good square. And here I think white committed a strategic error. Here, I'll show you what white does. He plays his rook over. This is a point where white just needs to take this knight, because that knight's going to be incredibly strong in the black position. And I'll show you a way to continue. Now black needs to regain the pawn, right? Okay. Now, white can play like this. This helps his development. There's a rule: don't make exchanges that help your opponent develop, and that's what black has done. But black has done it by getting the bishop pair. So theoretically, as I've said in a lot of these videos, if you can get the bishop pair and get down to an ending, bishop versus knight, you can theoretically win it by the method outlined in the famous game Stolz-Cashed and The Hague 1928, which is somewhere in my library, around 160 something, I think. I don't know. But anyway, it's in there. And if the light squared bishops get traded off, and it's not clear exactly how that's going to happen just yet, black theoretically, and he can trade the queens and rooks off, he can win the ending. But it's not always that easy to get there. There's a long way to reach that. White does enjoy a little more boardroom, but then again, white doesn't have to part with the bishop pair. This pawn isn't going anywhere. But you have to be careful how you do it. Okay, bishop f4, for instance, allows takes, and now c5. And if you take en passant, you didn't corral this pawn, and black's getting ready to play c5, and he'll be a pawn up. So it has to be done carefully. But this becomes a strong knight. White needed to get rid of it. He didn't. And now it gets anchored in, and white says, oh gosh, if I take that, he's going to have a protected pass pawn. But we can get rid of this. Let's discuss this for a moment. How does black retake? Logically, he should probably take back with the pawn, and maybe we're just going to transpose into something similar. Okay. There's a difference, though, and the difference is that the bishop can't go back to e1 as in the other position. White may have to give up the bishop pair. And who knows, now with this d file's open, maybe there's some tactical shots on that knight. Well, not on b4. Let's see. Takes. Now you got to be careful. White has to be careful. Looks like black has bagged a pawn, and then there's a threat. So, as I was saying, rook e1 wasn't the most accurate move. Anyway, what white does is plays b5, and he's trying to lock up the position. And I didn't quite understand king h8. For the moment, it weakens f7. Okay, I don't think white can get anywhere with knight g5, but it's not something white can directly punish. Okay, h6 creates a little weakness on the dark squares. On the light squares. One less piece or pawn protecting g6. The pawn on h6 can be loose in a lot of possible variations. If the bishop drops back, the g pawn can't advance one square because the pawn's going to fall. And I don't think white should have taken here. That just develops the black queen. Again, there's a rule. It's stated by Nimzovich in my system. Don't make exchanges that develop your opponent's pieces. Instead, do the reverse. Get him to make trades that develop yours. So, it's not that great, but also look at White's remaining bishop. All these pawns on White squares. This bishop's scope is greatly reduced, and now suddenly the queen that didn't have much activity now has a whole bunch. Okay, so then the players decide to lock up the queen side, and for the most part, not entirely positive yet, but the game is going to be decided on these three files, because the rest of the board is locked up. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. There's a possible clearance sacrifice somewhere down the line for White to play d5 and get the knight into d5, and it might create some havoc down there. It might win the b pawn. It might cause an exchange on d5 at some point, opening up another file. All kinds of things are possible, but suddenly the board got a lot smaller, so to speak. Okay, so White plays rook e3, and this actually gets White in a little bit of trouble later, and he'll end up making a more poor choice. Let's see how long he took on it. Well, he's been taking his time, so he's got 13.5 minutes. It took about 3 minutes on that move. But, essentially the game's about even. The one trump that White has out of all this is possibilities to get to this f5 square, and I'll illustrate that in just a moment. Here he's taken some steps to control f5 a little better. And now knight h4. And this is the point where I think White should have played knight f5. Okay. See, what knight f5 does is it tempos this bishop to start, so the bishop needs to come back. Okay. That's Black's most logical move. And now, once again, White doesn't want to trade here, but Black. Let me just illustrate here. Instead of dropping back, let's say Black takes. Well, this again is something very, very even, and it all boils down to what I was saying earlier about the pawns all being locked up on the 5 files on the left side of the board. Okay, so if Black drops back, White's no worse for wear here. Could consider bishop g4 with the idea of h4 to chase that queen out. Okay. Here, just take a look. What's Black going to do? This knight has no move. Maybe he'll play d6. That'll get rid of forever the possible clearance sack. Now let's try h4. Now where's the queen go? Doesn't have too many squares. Okay, so now Black is threatening to take now, but White should be able to. Let's see, he's on 3 times. Guess this isn't working out for White. Black's on that square 3 times, and the bishop is pinned. So, but nonetheless, we can go back to this idea, which is similar in the game. Get ready to try to trade the queen off, because the black queen was one of the attackers of the knight. Now let's see, go here, now d6. Now the question is g6 something White should worry about? Oh, White always has h3, and he answered g6 with knight h4, and just a possibility. Let's get back to the game. Okay, goes back knight f3, and looks maybe White's happy with the draw, but with a higher rating, maybe he doesn't want to draw. And but it's good. Both players are taking their time. White's now down to just under 9 minutes, and Black's been taking his time as well. Again, it was one of the differences between a faster internet time control like 45-45 in a real tournament game where you usually get about 2 hours for your 40 moves. Normally in this situation, black is going to have close to an hour on his clock in a real game, and both white and black. Here they're kind of short of time. So, you know, if white's playing for a win, he's not being very aggressive about it. But then again, he can't. You know, the 5 files are locked up, so he's playing on the one side of the board where there's some play. And here's where white commits his mistake. He sees that if he takes and black takes, that he's going to drop some material, right? But it's one of those cases in chess where it's called, you know, I can't do that. I guess there's no real term for it, but you say, oh, I can't move there because he'll do this, and you stop your analysis and move on to something else. And I've mentioned this before. It's one of these thinking deficiencies. We can't dismiss moves like this without a thorough analysis. In other words, how many times, well, just to take a sacrifice, elementary sacrifice, if you have, if black's king's on the back rank with his castled on the king side with his pawns in front of it that haven't moved, and white has a queen on d2 and a rook on d1, and black has, say, a rook on a8, the natural move, we all know, is to play queen d8 check, sacrificing the queen because the rook will recapture with checkmate, right? But the line of reasoning is we say, oh, I can't play queen d8, I can't put my queen on d8 because his rook takes it. And it's something I've pointed out before. This is how the computers of the chess computers of the 1970s used to think. They wouldn't make a sacrifice because their algorithm was set where they simply would not consider any move that dropped material. But white actually has some reasonable drawing chances in here along this motive, and even coming up, and I'll share those. Let's just get to the game so we can get to it, and I'll just illustrate from this point, because black is now winning material, and here's where white makes a choice, and I think this is a poor choice, but we have to forgive him because of his time. Look, here he spent most of his time just making the queen exchange, but sometimes common sense can make the choice here. I did notice the comments in the game week 4 game of the week thread that white had to lose some material here. So the question is, how should you lose it? Okay, let's look at this. If the knight moves, black has knight f3 check, and he's going to win the exchange, or the quality as is known in Europe. And instead, what white chooses to do is to lose a piece. Now, even if you get a pawn compensation when you lose a piece, it's better to go down the exchange than to go down a piece for a pawn. And we'll demonstrate why here in just a moment. I'll show you the reason why. And this will shortcut the decision, and you'll see. Okay, it's okay to take that bishop. Okay, but this is the mistake. You need to give up the piece. I mean, give up the exchange, because after this position, here's the drawback. White has 3 pieces. Black has 4. Okay, that's 1 extra piece for black. All right. Now let's give up the exchange instead, and I'll show you the difference. I'm trying to get back up. Okay. Okay, play knight g2. Okay, now, naturally, knight f3 check is going to come. Now, you hope that black takes the pawn, and you don't drop the exchange, but black will take. And now, the difference is that even though White's down the exchange, he's got 3 pieces, and so does black. Now granted, the knight's not worth as much as the rook, but it's an equal number of pieces, and that's the difference. When we have 4 pieces to 3, you can gang up on a particular pawn, and the other side's going to run out of defenders. Here you have an equal number of defenders. But what's interesting is White actually has, in my opinion, some legitimate drawing chances here. And it boils down to the fact that, again, these 5 files are locked up, right? They're all locked up. So black basically has contrived for some kind of an F5 break. Or he can try to attack this weakness on H2, and I was kind of fiddling around with this, looking for some ideas. Okay, I'll show you what I looked at. Okay, and White's just making natural moves. Here you want to be controlling F5. Okay, now suppose black goes there directly. Okay, well, suddenly White's got a pawn for it. He's got a pawn compensation for the exchange. And that could be enough to hold the game. And if he gets G4 in, that knight is anchored forever, and this bishop is entirely shut out of the game, especially when White occupies the E4 square. So this is how close White is to a draw. Just for an example, other ways for White to do this. Let's revert. Let's go back. Okay, I think G4 is a mistake by black, because White will come along with knight E3 and pocket that pawn. So we'll go back to this idea. White could even play G4 here, and if this happens, suddenly this is a pass pawn, and White's going to anchor it in here with knight E3. Black's got some winning chances, but White's going to be stubborn and try to blockade and somehow take advantage of the fact that dark squared bishop of black's is not a good piece. And let's just back it up. The other plan is, well, let's do this. The other plan is to try to assault H2. I want to take on. I want to take the the knight with the rook. And you'll see why in a moment. Okay, let's go back to this idea. And now black's going to try to double up rooks on the H file. And he can do that. White can't stop it. But unless black makes this F5 move right now, White will just shut it off permanently. So let's try this move for the fun of it. And now knight F3 or knight G3, and I think White's pretty much got a positional draw here. Let's just play this move for the fun of it. How does black make any progress? I don't see how he makes any progress. Everything's shut off. So at some point black has to try F5, but whoops! Look at that! Look at that powerful knight, and doesn't have to be attacking that rook, because I've just played this just for illustration. If assuming this rook was on H5, how does black make progress? What can he attack? How does he activate his bishop? So I think White had legitimate drawing chances, but we'll forgive him because he didn't have any time on his clock. Okay, let's move on. So he opts to give up the piece, and this basically just hands black a completely winning game. And there's a lot more to this game. You'll be surprised what's going to happen here. So really not much is happening here. White is dead lost. He missed his chance, but he's still trying to set up a blockade. But again, he's down a piece, and that's the problem. And black is still going to get his F5 thrust in here in a minute and open up some lines. and black's carefully preparing it, and there it comes. And, you know, like I say, white's trying to blockade, but the problem again is he's down a piece and lines are going to open up. And there's just too many weak squares in the white position. And now the F file is open, and there went a pawn. And at this point, it's kind of an interesting position. Black, okay, let me say it this way. One of the things about tactics, working tactical problems, and I've pointed this out countless times, if you're looking at a theme, it'll say like white to play and win, or black to play and win, or maybe it's under a theme such as double attack or removing the defender, something along that line. You're given a clue. Now when you actually play a game, you don't have any clue if there's a win in a position or not. You have to find it. And so what I like to say is, in this case, black to play and do the best he can. And I invite you to pause the video and try your luck on it. Now let's look at the time, 12:53, and go ahead. The time on black's clock, 12:53. Let's pause the video and come back and solve and see what black missed. Okay. All right, you're back. Here's what black did. We played rook f1, and he spent about 2 minutes on the move. But black has a forced checkmate here. Okay, check. Let's take the rook. It really doesn't matter. Now notice the white king is boxed in. He only can go back to g1. And here we have a wonderful theme. The knight is controlling these two squares that the king can't go to. All we need to do is get the king in check, and that can be done in many ways. Put the rook here. That's mate. And the bishop's doing the damage. The bishop's checking, the knight's taking away 2 squares, and the rook's taking away 3 squares, right? So, black, you had a forced mate. You missed it. Next time you'll find it. Now, the move he plays isn't bad. He's winning. It's only bad because he had a mate. And I guess black just got a little nonchalant here. This move was a terrible move. It gives back the piece. Here he's missed a mate. Now he's going to give back the piece. Let's see. He took he took about a minute on the move. White's in time trouble. Had he thought just a little bit longer, just about any other move would have been good. Anyway, white gets the piece back. Thank you very much. And the inexplicable is about to happen. Major blunder. Major blunder. Now it's white's turn. White to play and do the best he can. What do you think? Okay? What do you think? Now white has 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Is that enough time to figure it out? Figure out what to do here? I think it's enough time. Okay. Go ahead and pause the video if you haven't already, and I'll tell you. All right. At this point, white has incredibly strong winning chances. Surprise, surprise. How to do it? Okay? I'll show you how. It's real simple. Rook check. Now the king has to get a check, right? Now you trade the rooks. You say, you can't do that. You're down a pawn. Well, this knight is very poorly placed. Bang. Knight d1. Black is in a pickle, in a major pickle here. Black cannot move his knight, period. If he moves it, he's losing. Now, black's got to find the move. So here's another position. Black to play and do the best you can. How do you save this game? Okay. You've resumed the video. There's one move that keeps black from losing. One move. Everything else, black's losing. The only move to save the game is to play g5. And the game is now a draw. And the reason is, here I'll show you. Let's just run through it. White's plan is to run over here and grab this knight, but fortunately the black king Whoops, let's not go that way. The black king gets active. Okay, white's, like I say, white's plan is to go after the knight. Black has some resources. Okay, we're going to get the knight. Now, suddenly the black king gets some counterplay into the heart of the white position. And the threat is to run over this way, right? And it's going to take white a long time to get a passed pawn. He's got to take the knight, drop the king back, bring the knight to b2 to a4 to take on b6. So essentially what's going to happen is white can't go after the knight, and it's kind of funny. Black can even sacrifice this pawn, and the game's a draw. White can't get into the black position. So if black plays any other move but g5, he's losing. Okay? King e7 loses g5, and now look, the king cannot get into the white position. What's going to happen now is white will just send his king across and pick up the knight. And black can't do enough running this pawn at any appropriate time. And then white will reposition his knight on a4 and tie the black king down to defending b6. And then the white king will just march back, collect this pawn on h4, and it's white's game. So kind of ironic. Nobody pointed this out in the notes. I went ahead and looked at them. Usually I don't, because I wanted to look at them unless I missed it. Nobody pointed out that black almost well, not only did black allow a theoretical draw, black could have lost this position. So going back to the right move, white had 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Now the one thing I haven't looked at yet is how much time did white take on his move. And so he's got 2 minutes and 34 seconds to find this. Rook check and trade rooks, and then play knight d1, trapping the knight. The one thing we have I've talked about countless times is the number one reason people lose games is because they play too quick. So we'll forgive white for missing it. Maybe even if he took all of his time, maybe he couldn't sort it all out. But you have to go back beyond some of these barriers. He's saying, I can't trade rooks, I'm 2 pawns down. That's the barrier. But then you see the move knight d1, you look one move further, find the move knight d1, and say, hey, look, that knight on an a4 can't move ever. I might have something here. Okay, so let's find out how much time white took. Uh-oh, his clock went up by 22 seconds, meaning he took 23 seconds on the move. Well, got to forgive him. Anyway, the game is now lost, and there's really not much else to it other than the fun black had, and we'll talk about that. Now the game's over. Black just starts collecting pawns and advancing pawns. Now, at this point, I'll be honest. If you have white in this position, you need to resign, okay? And I guess black started having fun. He's entitled to it since white won't resign. Here comes another pawn. Now he starts getting clever, black has a mate. He can end this real quick, but oh well. Black was having fun. Let's go get all the pawns. Now, how often do you see something like this? Well, you don't. Let's enjoy it while it's here. Seven pawns ahead. Too bad he traded had to trade a pawn to open the file. He could have had 8 pawns on the 6th rank. Now he's got the entire 6th rank full. Isn't that pretty? And I like the idea of making knights, which black does. I did that to somebody in a 3-minute pool Game 68 in my library. What 4 knights can do when they work together is just brutal. Oh man, they're strong. Game 68, my own personal library. Check it out. Hey, knight number 1. And you do have to watch out for the stalemate. I think I was trying to do this to somebody else and stalemated them. I personally, I think it's annoying when someone plays out. But oh well, if you're going to play out, I'll get myself unannoyed by doing what black did, make knights. Oh, there's another one. And you just have to be careful. But black's got all the time on the world on his clock to make sure he doesn't. So as long as white has a square to go to, black's okay. And now he allows him a flight square of D1 or C1. And now, well, let's see, does white have mate and 1 in this move? Isn't this, what am I missing? What? Oh no, he can mate with a pawn, right? Am I right? Can he mate with a pawn? Right? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. He played the king down. He wanted to mate with the knight, I guess. That's it. He wants to mate with the knight. Okay, well, that's fine. Anyway, every game from Game of the Week has had its flaws, but it's certainly what makes chess interesting. We're not asking for perfection. We're looking for something to learn from. And there's plenty to learn from this game, just like hopefully next one. I mean, we don't necessarily need to have the best game, the best played game. We need an exciting game, and I think this one fits the bill. So hats off to both players, and thanks for your time for having a look. Thanks. Take care.